All right. Welcome to Corrections Code Enforcement Committee for 7/27/2023. Present this morning are Councilman Hockett and Councilman Schramm, appointed officials. You've got Public Safety Commissioner Justin Day, Finance Officer Chandra Phillips. I have Code Enforcement Officer Chelsea Luce, and then Jail Administrators Lori Kalenda and her assistant Jeff Augsburger. It's a beautiful Thursday. You guys are funny off air. Let's see how we do on air. I'll let you start wherever you'd like, Justin.
All right, go ahead and start, Lori.
Today we have 155. For the month, we have 160 inmates. And for the year, we're averaging 160 is our average per day. And then
Right to the budget.
we'll start right to the budget. You should have I know it's still in small writing, but you should have the current budget that has our numbers plugged in from what we talked about last week, or last 2 weeks ago, excuse me.
Might be a point of information. So there have been a few changes made, not to anything that was budgeted, but you'll see on the back, the very back page, that last number, that is now where we're looking to be at as far as being in the black. There was a few things that were caught under the personal services end. Chandra caught that, and so what we did is those numbers have changed a little bit. Apparently, I was not in there. So that had to be added in, and then there was a few other little things that had to be readjusted. So that has since been fixed.
I know I asked this when you informed me yesterday, but if he wasn't paid for by corrections last year, the 50%, what departments paid the extra?
Oh, he was being paid out of there, it just wasn't in the budget.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
But what we had to add in for his 50% out of there, we made up for in other areas.
Yes.
So one area that we found was the shift differential pay. In that budget number, way too much money was thrown in there for shift differential. We actually cut that in half. The budget showed 99,840. I show, with just the 50 cents, 41,000 and some change. Understanding that that doesn't include the overtime that they have to figure back in there, the overtime rate. So the new plugged in number is, I think, 48,000. Is that what we ended up doing?
Yeah.
Couple other things that we found, again, because Public Safety Commissioner 50% wasn't taken out of there. We needed to make sure that the longevity pay, anniversary date pay, because so you don't get those until you've been here for 5 years. 2024 is 5 years for that individual that's currently in the position. So we have to do figuring that as well. So there was just several different things. We really looked at the overtime. Overtime is super high. I will tell you that from July 1st of 2022 to July 1st of 2023, 103,000 in overtime. That's just regular overtime. That does not include holiday overtime. But the majority of that is due to the fact that they were 10 short for 6 months.
I know, with 10 short people.
Correct. I wasn't comfortable
Something's gotta
budgeting $103,000. So we ended up putting in $83,000 for overtime.
And I think because when we looked at that overtime budget, we didn't have 103 budgeted. We looked at what we were the year before, when we were much closer to full staff. And then at that point, we added in the 7.5%, and that's where we were budgeted at. So that's kind of where we ended up leaving it at. So we had it budgeted lower than what we were projecting this year because of the circumstance we were in.
Another issue that was found is when we looked at healthcare, it was still plugged in at 35.5 full-time. It's actually only 33.5 full-time, so that took 24,000 out of healthcare that wasn't in there before, because they had 33.5 budgeted full-time people, and it's just a little over $12,000 a piece for healthcare per year.
$1,000 a month.
Yeah, wow.
Okay.
And of course, then, once you change all those numbers, it changes your workman's comp number. If I may, just because this was asked at the last committee meeting about the 4170, the unused uncompensated absences. So not every budget has this line budgeted for. The way we figure that amount is we look at how many employees the department has, and then how many of them are longevity employees. So if an employee has been here for 5 years or more, they get 100, any employee gets 100% of their comp time paid out and their vacation time paid out. That's not huge because we have pretty low numbers on how much you can accrue there, what your max benefit is. But if they've been here over 5 years, then they get 25% of their sick leave paid out as well. If they're over 55, then we have to pay that to the state, to the retirement. So then it actually does come out of this separate line. If they're not over 55, then it goes straight to them in a paycheck and then it's taxed accordingly. But because of how we budget by full staff, by this many numbers, by this, we do put some numbers. Some departments do choose to put some in there in case someone retires or resigns or leaves. So that's the one thing that confuses people. They think it's just retirement. It is not just retirement. It is if someone leaves the city of Winter, whether it's good or bad terms, policy still says that we pay it out.
All right, Justin, continue. You can continue on.
Okay, yeah, that's all I had. Otherwise, our numbers hadn't changed from the last time we looked at them. So I guess now what we're looking for you guys for is questions. If you have why we came up with numbers, where we came up with them at, that's kind of what we're looking for is your guys' feedback.
I want to ask you a direct question. How much fluff is in this budget? No, don't be blowing me
No,
off.
I know.
I know that we hedge our bets. That's what we do as managers. We hedge our bets in our favor. I'm just asking you as a councilman, where are we at with that? What, in your estimation? I want the true information.
All I can tell you is, at this point, if we have to find some, there may be some, but we're looking at cutting 100 here, maybe 200-300 here. We're down to scalpel, and I will actually allow these guys to answer that question, and I'll just tell them, you can tell them what we have talked about and what was said when it came to that exact question.
Well, when we started right at the beginning of this budget, we knew it was gonna be right to the hair is what you needed. And if you notice, there's some lines there that are completely blank that we definitely sit down and looked at. Is it anything we needed this year for the budget wise? And if you notice, we cut out a lot of things that we thought, we went from just a dryer instead of a washer dryer next year. We picked what is a definite, we're gonna be back here if we don't ask for it now. And there is just, like Justin said, if there's anything, it'd be $100 here. We are to the bare minimums of what we feel.
And this is a cool feature. I didn't realize this did this. It shows from last year what we've cut out in terms of percentages. You're gonna look and see the biggest thing is equipment. We upgraded a ton of equipment last year. Because of our shortages in staffing, our instructors haven't been able to put on as many trainings. You'll see taser and pepper balls are down by 70%. It's because our inventory from last year's expense or this year's expense is still there. You'll notice farther down when you get closer to that equipment, when you start seeing minus 100%, which I know the IT upgrade, you can ignore that. We're not gonna have that every year. But equipment in general, and you see how many times it's because, like Justin said, we were tasked with bringing as tight a budget as possible because of the other increases that we're seeing, especially under the personal services with CPI and everything else going up. And there's expenses elsewhere, right? We transfer out from the last meeting when we showed you guys $102,000 at the bottom. Well, it's now 28,000. That's not because Lori and Jeff went back to the board and said, what can we do with this 102,000? That's because the transfers went up from 648 to 727, 727,000. That's on the last page. That's an important note because we joked last time when I said we're not done, and we all had a laugh. Well, others weren't done. We were pretty tight into what we're bringing in to you guys.
And to answer that question, Joe, when Jody and I have talked, I understand fully that we are a piece of this quilt work within the city of Winter. And so he flat out told me, he said, this is going to be the hardest and tightest budget year that you have ever seen. And he flat out said, needs, not wants this year. And so that's kind of what was pushed down, and we took a real hard look, you know, as they said, we need a washer and a dryer. But we took a look, what do we need more? Can we hopefully limp the washer along? Yes. We've got others, so we'll be okay, but our dryers were the biggest thing that we were struggling with down there. We gotta have clean clothes because cleanliness in a jail is super important. So that's where a lot of those decisions came in at. You know, we took out what we brought to you guys the first meeting where we talked about all personal services. So as far as fluff, I will stand here and say, and I will speak into the microphone.
Fluff probably isn't the correct word. but
It's the right terminology that
it's
everybody
what
understands.
Everybody understands.
Yeah,
That's why I use
100%,
it.
yes.
What we
So-
have, our biggest expenses in here, and everyone knows it, it's our personal services. Our utilities are up, the food costs are up, gotta feed the inmates, gotta keep them warm, gotta clothe them, our prisoner care is up. But those are all the things for operational necessity. Outside of that, there's not a ton. I mean,
Within this budget here, more specific question, if the council says, folks, we need a 6 to 7% savings in your budget,
Ooh.
where would you look? Hypothetically, where would you look?
The bond
With-
payment.
with-
We can cut that by 22.
I understand that we have to do what we have to, you know.
The quickest one
you-
that we're looking at now is when we get the other quote on managed IT. Right now, we have 30,000 in there for managed IT. We don't know where it's gonna come in at. So that's going to be our biggest piece. Once we have that and we bring that to council, then that will be kind of our biggest piece in there to see where that's gonna fall. So that would be the quickest way, depending on what that comes in. We may be low, but we may be high. I'm not sure yet. So when I get that last figure, then, you know, I mean,
Okay,
we
I
have
just-
one quote, but I don't know where the others are gonna come in, who's gonna be higher, lower. So we've left it here, and we haven't used the quote to put this number in, because obviously that's not fair, because these meetings are public. So we're not using any numbers from any quotes to put in here. This was when stuff was quoted 2-3 years ago. We've just put it in there, but we've never got around to getting on it. So that would be one of the possibilities. And the reality is, it may end up being less than 28,000, depending on how the quotes come in. That we have in the
and
black.
6 or
I don't know.
7% on an overall budget of 5. Not many people have that big of a budget to cut, so it's
I
a
was
much
gonna
larger
ask,
number.
do you realize how large your budget is?
Yeah.
To put it in perspective, the Corrections Department budget is larger than 275 communities in the city of Winter, or the state of South Dakota.
How many?
I'm guessing 275.
Just the corrections budget is larger
Just-
than their entire budget.
Correct.
Wow. I didn't know that.
It's just a guess, but from looking at other communities' budgets and how many towns are in South Dakota, I'm guessing
Yeah,
the
but
number's
you're
close.
also taking in more money than what those towns do too.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's why we do it.
Yep, that's
That's
exactly.
why we're in,
We're taking it
that's
all.
why we're messing with this.
We run this thing so that we
John.
can have more things in winter.
That's right.
Yep.
So one
That's
thing that
exactly
Justin
right.
and I did do, you see down at the very bottom, there's an increase line in there as to what the budget increase. If you leave the or the IT upgrade in there, their budget's decreased from 2023 to 2024 by 14%. If you take out that capital improvement, which is typically what we do, we take out the capital improvement because it's a one-time expense, they're still down 9% from 2023. I feel very comfortable in saying this is the only one that is down from 2023. Even when you look at their personal services, they only went up 10%. You could almost guarantee that it should have gone up 11.5 because of the 4% error in 2023 and 7.5 is being budgeted for 2024. But they're actually only 10% up in their personal services because they found some places where they took out some of the quote-unquote fluff that they didn't need. They cut some hours based off of what they could see on some of their part-time people. So,
And please understand, we realize how much of a microscope this particular department is under from a lot of different people. We're not gonna sit here and try to blow smoke and try to pass something off that is not true. That's why we gave everything.
My questions were more rhetorical in perspective, but my gut feeling is that we don't have a lot of fluff in your budget that I can see. You know, looking at it, sure, I'm not over there every day, line item by line item. We don't manage that facility, you people do. But what I know, the cost of everything and all this other stuff, I don't see personally a lot of fluff in it, so I just.
Yeah.
just
I
wanted
appreciate you
guys to-
asking the question.
I just wanted you guys to think this morning of where the council could, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Just to think about things.
Yeah, if we had to cut 6 to 7%, I'd probably be working free half the year. 'Cause I think that's about the only way to truly get to that figure, so.
But if we had to look internally, don't have this be misunderstood, but if we got mandated and got told, it'd be in staff. And then the determination would have to be made. Are you gonna cut from an enterprise? Are you gonna cut to the contribution made to a PSAP and to a general? See what I mean? Like, that would be what would, if we got told we had to, that's what we'd be
That's what
talking
we
about.
look at as
We'd have to
staff.
look at that big number that's
Staff,
leaving
yeah.
us, that is an expense. Or we'd have to look internally, and we gave up 2 positions, past this year, so, yeah, keep making the revenue that we need to.
Bradley, you got anything?
Got nothing.
Okay.
I got a bunch of questions, you know, that this year we didn't, the issue we got with, budgeting for more people than what we had, and then transferring that money to someplace else. That, I don't want that to happen again. I'm hoping that we have budgeted the right number of staff for the number of guests that we have. And that, to me, is the ratio that we need to stay with. We can't, we can't house more than 165. So
177.
however many that number is that it takes to house 165, that should be our budget. And I'm sure that it is, but I ain't smart enough to figure that out in this stuff. Okay, we rely on you guys, but here's where the problem is. Like happened this year, well, we budgeted for this many people and we didn't have them, so we want to move this money from this part of the budget over here. Don't want that to happen
And
again.
just so everybody remembers that, that was during the time that we were really looking hard at that expansion. And we weren't sure if it was gonna happen or it wasn't gonna happen, and if it was gonna happen, we needed people.
Yep,
So that's
I
where
Understand.
everybody felt
Yep,
comfortable on
but we don't
that
want to
one.
get into that
No, I agree.
scenario because that caused a lot of consternation.
Yep.
And consternation we don't need.
And actually, that was just one position, then we
Yep.
gave up the other one.
Okay. So it's fair to tell the public that our 2024 municipal jail budget is going to be 14% below what our budget was for 2023?
If you keep the IT upgrade capital improvement, that was several hundred thousand. But
Is that
Chandra-
not something we need?
Chandra said, yeah, we needed it.
We
Chandra
needed it.
traditionally said, when we're talking budgets in terms of reduction, that they take out the big capital improvement out of that, because that's not a yearly expense. Overall, we're down 9%, if you don't count the IT upgrade from 2023.
Look a little bit left, Brad.
I see that,
Yep.
yep. I just want to know what I'm going to tell the
Sure.
people that vote for me
Yep.
as to
Overall-
how we are
Overall, it is
managing.
14%.
Huh?
Overall, it is 14%, yes, sir.
14% less than what we had the year before?
Yes.
With the same number of prisoners,
Correct.
generally?
Correct.
Okay. I think I can sell that, Joe.
All other departments will be down that much too, right?
What kind of a, oh my God.
Jeff?
All the other departments don't have unlimited income.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
They're not
Joe?
enterprises, yeah, yeah. Which
Except
although.
water and except electric. and-
Yeah, you would describe the frustration from some, totally valid. We don't have unlimited money if, if we don't have the people staffing it to
Yep.
spread our money out. So I think, for instance, if we don't make the revenue, the 700,000 that was budgeted as an operating transfer out for, say,
Yep.
trash, public works, these kinds of things, those dollars aren't there if we're not profitable, right? So,
I'm not gonna disagree with you there, but we also have to remember that some of that 700 was not from operations.
that's true, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
And
Most of was
Please-
not from operations.
please understand that 28,000, that includes after transfers. So we're actually, before transfers are made, we are looking at, let me do the math here real fast for you.
But there's a reason that we operate a jail, is so that we can
Exactly.
make transfers to help offset the costs of things that don't have revenue.
Yep.
Without the transfers, we're slated at $755,541
Yep.
profit. And then that's where, out of that profit, then the transfers come.
Yep, that's
why
the
we
only
do it.
reason we make the profit.
And the
Yeah.
long-term goal is the bonds paid, and then you guys see many, many more zeros behind that. And then it goes where it needs to go, but we're a couple years,
Yeah.
we're trying to get there. Yeah, we're trying to get there.
Because that's the main
Yep.
focus, is to pay that bond off, and then that becomes an enterprise for the city. And that's huge.
Yeah.
That's when we'll add the fluff, and then you guys can take it out, when there's a lot more zeros down at that bottom.
So where in this does it allow for stopping the roof from leaking? Is
That'll be
that,
under repairs and maintenance or supplies.
that is
like-
under repairs and maintenance, okay?
Or supplies, depending on who has to do it. If we're just gonna continue to do what we're doing now, then that'll be under supplies.
Sounds to me like that doesn't work, but okay.
We're
Still
led to
leaks?
believe that it doesn't leak now. No, Brad, it's been taken care of. I mean,
Has it?
the stopgap measure, in my mind, that they took has worked because we haven't had a problem with
Correct.
it for a while.
You'll see it in future budgets. I'll tell you
No,
that
no,
right now.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
for right now, I don't think that we need to
Correct.
budgetary
It's
wise
just like
worry about
it's
that
just like
too
the
much.
people, we had forward thinking. We didn't want to put an expansion under a bad roof and then come to you guys and say, well, it's rotting, but we just redesigned a portion of our building. Now we need this. So that's what it was put there for. But yeah, this rain that we've had, in this recently, or, maybe not just recently, but
Okay.
so far this season, we have had no issues.
Okay.
like Justin said, eventually it will have to
Eventually,
be
yes,
looked at.
yes.
But,
Yep.
but that's where we also needs versus, you know,
So when it becomes that again, when the efforts stop working, then that's when you're gonna see it in the budget to come back and then get it fixed.
I think it's
Which will
important to
be
note
rough.
too that just for anyone in public, it's not any roofing over inmates. It's roofing over administrative, other purposes in the building. It's not where we house. We don't have a bad roof over
No,
our
that was all
population.
fixed.
Yeah, that was all
Yeah.
fixed, yeah.
Because your actual roof budget is nothing for next year.
Yep,
That's
correct.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
because
Any
it
kind of
doesn't-
repairs
Because
or-
now it doesn't leak.
Yeah, what Mike has done up there has
Okay,
stopped.
very good.
Yeah. And we did go up 17% in repairs and maintenance, just in case we do have to take in some additional up there.
Do I need to be concerned about what you said that I do? Because I wasn't listening.
Should have been
said
paying
it.
attention.
I heard.
If it was me,
Chandler,
no,
that's
don't
it.
worry about it. If it was.
Don't worry, I go back and watch.
I think it was all positive today,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I'm waiting for him to turn you loose if they're done.
Brad was still digging in, so I was just waiting.
I was what?
You were still digging into
I put my
papers.
shit away?
Oh, well, then here we go, Chelsea, you're up.
One final comment on the corrections. I just want to thank you people for what you do. I'm still amazed and astounded that
Quit sucking
the
up.
little town of Winter, South Dakota operates the third largest jail in the state of South Dakota. We do it in an equitable manner that has garnered the attention of state officials. And, you know, we're doing something right down here. I want to thank you people for doing that.
I will tell you, and I will point that direction, because it is those two, hands down, that walk in there every day and look at this stuff, make those decisions.
But your work is appreciated. I want you guys to know
They're
that.
amazing.
Even though we ask the hard questions, your work is appreciated.
Can I ask one question to follow up? I love that, Joe. Lori, 5 years ago, I told you the vision was you were going to own your department.
Yes.
Did you have any idea what I was asking of you at that point?
At that time, it was a little overwhelming, but then as we got into this, you know, it's very
Yeah.
doable.
Yeah.
And, yeah, our vision is still 2025, get it paid off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still our ultimate goal every day we
Yep.
go to work.
Okay, I'm done.
I haven't made any changes since 2 weeks ago to my current budget that I presented to you guys. I'll just point out the two increases that I do have on this thing outside of salary, OASI, retirement, all that stuff that I don't fill in. The two increases I have are on the repairs and maintenance line. That went up $100 just based on what I have done so far this year, what I've used so far this year, and just looking at previous years that Cody and Mike had. So that, like I said, that one went up $100, and then the only other one that went up for me was the consultant, and we talked about that last time as to why I would like to see an increase in that. So otherwise, everything else is stayed the same, or I looked at years past and made a little bit of a change, which again, I've only been here since the week of Thanksgiving and not entirely sure what next year is going to look like, but based on looking at previous years and all of that, that's kind of where I sat everything, and knowing a few things that we have coming up, so.
And again, to point out, there is an 8% overall increase. But as Chandra mentioned, you know, in a lot of other places, you're looking at, 11.5 off the bat. So she's increased in a few, but then some others, have decreased, as she's looked where she's at, what she's doing, what she's using. So we looked really, really tight at that as well, and so she went down where she could and went up where she thought she needed to.
So as a point of information, you talked about the P and Z board.
Yeah.
And I think council needs to hear what the hope was in this budget.
So this actually happened in last year's budget, in the 2023 budget, when person in Chelsea's position was here. And when we went through the budget process at that time, they had asked for a raise for planning and zoning board. And so that was plugged in last year. It wasn't at CPI, it was just, I think, $10 for the chair and maybe $5 for the board members. One thing also that, so when you look at what you spent versus what you budgeted too, there's some differential there because the P and Z board hasn't been full for a year, 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. It's been a
Probably
while.
3.
The other thing that you see, the big discrepancy in personal services is retirement. Again, that was an issue with someone's quarter wages, their retirement was not reflected in there. So, not someone, a position's quarter wages was not reflected in there. So it looks like 44% in retirement looks huge. I will assure you that your code enforcement officer is not getting a 44% increase in their retirement. Sorry.
How do you feel about that?
You know, I was really hoping to retire at 40.
So is that
but-
salary amount, does that include the P and D board?
Yes,
does,
so it also includes 3 potential meetings for your Board of Adjustments, who have only met once in 3 years.
Board of Appeals.
Board of Appeals, excuse me, Board of Appeals.
That's that other 8
So
or
it-
10 people.
Yep, so in
Yep.
other words,
They
if
get
that
paid if they have
position
a meeting?
writes,
Good.
whatever, and they want to appeal it, we have a whole separate board that can meet for that.
And that's all part of this salary
That is
budget?
correct.
Okay.
And I am also in there at a quarter, because my position, 50% comes out of corrections, a quarter comes out of code enforcement, and then the other quarter comes out of the police department budget for this position.
So yesterday was the first day I really started diving into the personal services numbers. Mostly because, and I had told you guys I would be doing that as I got to that point where I could. Now we're at a point where I'm not plugging in all of the numbers all day long. Now I'm just editing some numbers. So now I have that ability and the time, and hopefully executive time goes off without a hitch for the next couple days. That seems to be an issue. So yesterday with Justin coming in, because we were looking at some numbers, because yesterday when we first looked at his budget, he was gonna make $120 in corrections. We wanted to really take a look at that, like, what's going on? So looked fine detail at their personal services, because that is a huge portion of their budget, and that's all I can help with on their end is the personal services. So the public safety personal services really got dived into yesterday. Law enforcement, dispatch, and corrections. And now we'll
code
be working
enforcement.
towards public works as I have the ability to go through those. The mayor has asked for a new report. I'm working on getting that report compiled.
For you as council.
Yes, so what it will be is every department, and it'll be it's going to be a total salary line for every year since 2020, and how many employees, full-time and part-time, for meeting pay were budgeted at that, in each of those years to make up that number. Because all of your other personal services line fall into, it's based off of your salary line. So that's really the number that we're looking into. For instance, you will see when we do the 2023 budget, you'll see that there was 35.5 budgeted for in corrections. 2024, there's 33.5 full-time. You might see some have added part-time positions in there because it is cheaper and they don't need them all the time. Transport drivers are one of them. To go back to the corrections thing, I promise you they did not pay me to stick up for them today because I feel weird, getting itchy and hives. That's why I'm getting hives. No. There's just a lot of things that they're really doing. Now I've completely lost my train of thought. To go into that detail of it and really look into, oh, that's where I was going. So you can say that it's always been 166 beds, and why would we ever need to change? That's really hard for them to say, because there's a lot of factors that play into that. Now that we've taken over this medical side of things, that's really hard for them to say, well, yeah, we still only have 166 beds, but here's what they're requiring of us now based off of our new contract with such and such county or such and such federal. Or, hey, we're doing a lot more transport, so we're gonna make some more on the other side, but we have to have people to transport them. So maybe our bed status never changes, but some of the rules that are required of us may change. And so I have a hard time saying that the personal services number shouldn't change if our bed number doesn't change, because there are some requirements that do come in for them on that side. Our liability at the jail, if we don't have medical staff on the insurance side, is ginormous. And so to have that ability to have the medical staff there, understanding that we're very blessed to have Winter Regional this close too. But they can't just stop what they're doing to come down to our facility all the time either. So to have that medical staff there that can actually, when somebody comes in, do the vitals, make sure what's going on. I can tell you just from sitting in on that insurance board, coverage board, a lot of the claims that are coming in are from jails, are from police departments. And it's because they didn't follow their procedures. They didn't check them. Or they're only checking them once every 2 hours because they don't have the medical staff to do it. Or it's just a med aid that's checking vitals and they don't have the certifications to be truly checking vitals. And it's really nice to hear on the back end, call Winter and see what Winter does. Not just from a financial standpoint, but from our liability standpoint too.
And that's why we brought up that, Jeff, if you want to talk about that, Jeff or Lori, about what we brought up a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you guys really dove into that or not, but that was all on that medical side.
Yeah, so we provided a report that will continue to gather the statistics for the following year's budget, because when we talk about some of the needs and wants we took out, one of the needs would be an additional medical. But we, out of personal services, we needed to make some cuts. We didn't budget, I believe, and correct me, Chandra, but I think it was around a $70,000 expense to add. We budget as an RN. If we would have hired an LPN, great, but we always budget at the top. But yeah, eventually, it's very situational. It's we talk about 177 as our number. That does include our holding space for those that might be in and out in 12 or 18 hours. But the mental health appointments that we're doing, the provider visits that we get help from the hospital, thankfully, as much as John does, there's going to have to be additions to that solely because of the liability. We do not have medical staff on 24 hours a day. Very few jails do. Your Rapid City and your Sioux Falls, yeah, Sioux Falls contracted out to a company, but that's a whole nother,
Bennington County is contracted out.
another whole nother deal that I don't know particularly if we wanted to get into, but we'll continue to gather those statistics so you guys can see. I can speak just without, I don't have it with me, but in terms of how many inmates of that 160 average are on medications, it's well over 100. So when you talk about that, that's why John's an instructor in 2 disciplines. He's our CPR AED, and then also he'll be starting the Med Aid program once he gets all of his workbooks. But that'll make our CO line staff better, more knowledgeable in terms of dispensing medication. But that, again, all has liability. You referenced vitals. John's written SOPs, our standard operating procedures for non-medical correction staff to learn from him under his direction as our registered nurse. But yeah, we took out, that is a need that we took out. So if people want to point at any particular thing, that's one of the biggest things that the jail, I think, will need to look at in 25 is adding a medical position to try to spread out coverage a little bit more, so.
So I have a question for Chelsea. Don't I remember that we just bought a new software system that allows you to keep track of who you sent letters to and on a more efficient basis than what we had before that. And this is brand new, or within 2 years old software. I would,
I believe so.
memory, my
There's an
memory's
annual
not
fee
very
with
good.
it.
2 to 3 years.
Yeah, but there's an
Okay.
annual fee.
And actually, that came about when Mike was here, that actual program.
okay.
But then we found out that it does a lot more and allows for more productivity. So
Correct.
then, under Cody, we expanded that, and then, yeah.
But my question is, if we just bought that stuff, we still have $5,000 to buy software?
That's
So-
the annual fee.
Yep,
Cost us $5,000 a year to have that software?
over, yeah,
Oh my.
yeah.
That's the backup for it and everything. Like, so there's a little bit, so it gives you the updates, what they'll say, free updates if you pay us annually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it gives you the updates for it, and I'm sorry, Chuck, but in.
No, you're fine.
So Cody did add some.
So it's more like a service fee?
It kind
Okay.
of, yep.
Okay, yep. Okay.
Same with Tyler Technologies, I pay about $30,000 a year to have their backup and support and IT and all that stuff on it.
Great.
Your idea of cutting 5 is something small, right?
So I'm just gonna ask, Chelsea, I see over on maybe Third or Fourth Street, there's some trees with a bunch of hay bales scattered out, looks like mulch. What's the story on that? Can you tell me?
We will have to wait for City Attorney Jensen to return for me to be able to answer what we're doing to move forward on the absolutely zero hay or flammable material stacking. So,
Yeah, I didn't know if he was using it for mulch or, to ask him, what's this laying out here for? You know, I have no idea what it could be. It was also in his fence line,
yep.
it looked like to
Yep.
me. And so you have not approached the individual landowner at all, or tell me?
I would have to send a letter because I can't just walk up to somebody's door, and knock on it
Really?
to speak with them. I
Okay.
can't enter the property without having an inspection notice,
Oh,
Um,
okay,
with that person.
okay.
So.
All right, so,
we're-
so the answer to my question is you don't have a clue why it's there?
You're correct.
Yeah, okay,
Yep,
okay.
yep. So,
Because I could understand if he was using it for mulch for his new trees,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that could be an excuse to have that laying out like that. But I had no valid reason whatsoever for
Right.
seeing that there.
Yep.
If you got time, Brad, and you drive around winter, you will find lots of fire hazards around the time of
Yeah.
winter.
Fire hazards
A lot of
don't
fire
bother me
hazards,
either.
not just specific, the
Flammable.
bale pile.
Flammable material.
Brad is referencing yesterday ordinance and policy. As a committee, we drove around town and we looked at some,
Good.
we did. We wanted to take a look at different things. And that was a question that came up. I think we were all interested.
As to why?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't know. But there's other examples out there that we will have to address. Operationally, based on what council
And-
gives you as an ordinance.
And Mr. Hockett,
You-
because
you
we're in a
and I.
committee meeting here, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Hockett,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't say that was really a fire hazard because you have an unbaled bale of straw, looked like to me, scattered out in between 3 or 4 trees,
Yeah.
right on the grass, and I have no idea.
Well, they were still baled.
It looked to me like the bales were broken all up.
No, they were
They're
still
still
intact.
Fire, and then you have.
They're
big
not
fire
stacked,
in
though.
winter.
No, they are not stacked, but the
They're not
key word to
stacked.
that is or deposit. They were a deposit of hay.
Or flammable material.
Oh, that's the second part, huh?
Yep, that's the,
Oh.
that's the bugaboo.
But I just wondered if you had any conversations with whoever that is, I don't care, you know, but, interesting.
If I see him outside ever on my drivings around, I will have a chat, just to see, so.
You guys don't have any idea how hard it is for me to bite my tongue. I think we're done, Mr. Mayor.
All right. We will conclude.
I can't think of anything on either one of these budgets that we need
No,
to be concerned
I-
with.
I like them. You talked about driving quadrants.